Futures Radio Show, sponsored by CME Group, the world's leading and most diverse futures and options exchange. CME Group's markets help individuals and businesses around the world effectively manage risk. For access to free educational tools and resources for the active individual trader, please visit activetrader.cmegroup.com.
Every day, traders and investors dive in to tackle the ever-changing markets to find opportunity. Futures Radio Show is your #1 source for answers to the questions that all market participants want to ask. Veteran futures trader Anthony Crudele sits down with the most influential leaders and top traders in the industry. Now, here's your host, Anthony Crudele.
Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in for this episode with Tom Chippas. Remember, new shows are posted every Monday and Thursday. You can subscribe to the show on iTunes and YouTube. If you're enjoying the show, please leave a review on iTunes. Before I play today's interview for you, I want to give a shout out to the great sponsors of Futures Radio Show: CME Group, Trading Technologies, RJO Futures, and Top Step Trader. To learn more about these sponsors and the important things they are doing for futures traders, be sure to click on their logos on our website. Recently, I attended the FIA Expo in Chicago, and I sat down with Tom Chippas, CEO of ErisX. Tom has worked with Citi, Barclays, and was the CEO of Citadel Technology. Tom said to me that he is so excited about ErisX that on a scale from 1 to 10, he's at an 11. We discussed how ErisX partnered with DRW, Virtu, and TD Ameritrade as they are launching physically delivered futures and spot markets for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin. I asked Tom if he was worried that the crypto markets might get diluted due to all of the new futures and spot exchanges popping up, and he explains how ErisX is different than other spot exchanges such as Coinbase due to their licensing. Last but not least, Tom tells us if ErisX is allowing additional platforms on their exchange to trade their products. Without further ado, let me take you right to the interview with Tom. Tom, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's great to have you here, Tom. So you were the managing director and global head of quantitative prime brokerage at Citi and Barclays, the CEO of Citadel Technology, and now you're the CEO of ErisX. So that's a pretty amazing resume. And with everything you've done thus far in your career, I asked you, Tom, from a 1 to 10, how excited are you about ErisX? And you said, Anthony, it's at an 11.
It's an 11.
So talk to us about that.
No, thank you. For me, it's kind of hard to fathom that this opportunity became available when I think about everything I've done and my personal interest in the crypto and blockchain side of things. When I started conversations on this, I definitely had a lot of those I got to pinch myself moments. It's really, for me, a great opportunity to take what I've learned over the years, driving change in markets we already know, in equities and futures, and driving changes in technology, and finally bringing that all together, I think, to create a market that everyone's looking for. So super excited.
Yeah, I mean, I have to admit, when I first read the announcement on this, you guys were announcing futures products for Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, and Ethereum. They're all going to be physically delivered. And at first I'm like, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I'd like to see all of these cryptos having futures on them. But when I really took note was when I saw the investors, the partners on the list. You had DRW, Virtu, and TD. So those are a few of the biggest fish in the industry. So talk to us about this partnership.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think we're beyond thrilled to have the roster of investors that came on board with us. I think it's not only a statement of support from folks who know what they're talking about, but I also think it underscores the message of what we're trying to do at ErisX. We want to build a safe, transparent, intermediary-friendly marketplace for people to trade spot crypto and futures. And certainly, someone like TD coming in starts to show you that there's demand out there, and that demand is going to come from places that maybe aren't active in the market today. I think a lot of people obviously have accounts in other platforms and they trade, but you can't log into a platform you know, love, and are comfortable with and start to trade these products today. And the fact that they've invested and are locking arms with us to partner is a great testament to what we're building and what it could be. Then you bring in name brands, people who have a track record of success, like DRW, like Virtu, and so many of the others that you would have seen on our release. We're just beyond thrilled that they're on board with us, not only as investors, but partnering with us to make sure we build the best market we can.
Yeah, now at ErisX, you guys are going to have a DCM, which is a license to operate a futures exchange, and you're also going to have a DCO license, which is a license to operate a clearing firm. So when I was reading about that, that was very interesting to me, because that means that you're going to be very similar to a Coinbase, but also very different because of those licenses. Talk to everybody about that.
Sure. Yeah. So Eris today has a DCM, and that's been in operation for close to 8 years. It's a great track record. We know what it means to run a regulated market, and we're going to be repurposing that, of course, for purposes of crypto. Now, spot isn't regulated by the CFTC, but we're going to be operating our spot market under the same constructs of surveillance and transparency. So we have the DCM, and as you said, that's what we need to operate the exchange. So a CFTC regulated futures exchange requires that license. The DCO is to operate the clearinghouse, and that's an application we have in process. The commission published our application a few weeks back, so that's out there in the public domain. Again, we'll be offering spot and futures on the same platform. We need these licenses to operate the futures components of it. Certainly there's other places to trade, as you know, but from our perspective, having these licenses shows that we're committed to being regulated and transparent about how our market operates with a rule book that people can see and what have you. And B, we think there's some counterparts that either by internal decision or by mandate just aren't going to be able to transact on platforms that aren't regulated, that aren't transparent. And we think that having these two licenses isn't just a nice to have. We think it's critical to our story.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that there's other places for people to go and trade. And the one question I have with all of these futures markets coming out on cryptos now, and all more spot exchanges, are you worried that it's going to get diluted? Well, what makes you believe that your products are going to have the liquidity needed, for your clients and customers? Yeah,
I mean, look, we're not going to own 100% of the market, and we're aware of that. But we think that by providing trading in a regulated environment, as we just talked about, B, sizing the spot and futures contracts to be sizes accessible to market participants that can't get in today. Some of the products that are out there today are quite large notionally in the cash settled future space. So we think by sizing the products appropriately and then bringing in people to really make a market, having a bunch of professional trading groups in your market is necessary and something we need to have, and we have great support in that regards. But you need to have people that are trading for different reasons over different time horizons and different sizes to truly make a market. So we think that by bringing in TD Ameritrade, by bringing in institutional FCMs to help bring their clients along, you would have seen EDF Man on our press release as well, and there'll be some more names you'll be hearing about as we trundle on towards the end of the year here. We think by bringing in different counterparts that have different reasons to trade and having different sizes, we'll start to create a more liquid and interesting market. And then for people that haven't sort of joined on early, if we make a market that's liquid and deep and tight, then even if you're on another platform, you're going to want to connect and trade with us as well.
Why did you choose to have physically delivered? Why was that important to you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the products in the market today are cash settled, and certainly there's people trading them, and the volume in some is better than volume in others. But on a cash settled product, you're dealing with a derived closing price, whether it's off a reference or via an algorithm of some kind. We think physically settled is important for a couple of reasons. One, going back to my comment about expanding the market participants, there's some folks who are just going to want to own coin outright. They're going to want to come in and say, yep, I want to pay and I want to own Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Ethereum, and they want to have it. So you need a physically settled market on the spot side. On the future side, we think one, it lends simplicity to deriving what the value is. The price is the price. When you execute the trade, you know what the settlement price is going to be. And second, we think that it spans the market to folks that maybe have large balances of coin, whether they're a miner or engaged in some other business where they have these coins. By having a physically settled market, they can bring those coins into the clearinghouse, use them as collateral, trade around those, and what have you. So we just think it's something that's missing in the market today.
Explain to everybody how it actually physically gets delivered. Like, what's the process? How do I get the Bitcoin or the Bitcoin Cash or Litecoin or Ethereum?
Yeah, it's not like the train car rolls up with your Bitcoins in it.
Exactly.
Yeah. Where do I put these pork bellies? But it's not quite like that. So look, probably the most high-profile thing people find when they go looking for exchanges is, if you search that in any search engine, you're going to see hacking events and things like that. So we're laser beam focused on security, but the accounts will be on our clearinghouse. we'll have those accounts on the clearinghouse. We're taking an approach that's going to ensure that clients know what they have, where it is, when things are moving, but also ensure the security. So it's a combination of using wallet infrastructure that people are probably very familiar with today, and wrapping that with some additional procedural steps to make sure that we have high degrees of protection around it. But in short, what you're getting is a movement of that balance in and out of a wallet, which is really how these coins are managed today. It's a little bit of a different story, right? Custody typically means someone's holding it on your behalf. This is more akin to maybe a bearer instrument where if someone has your keys that can move a balance, that's the risk that you take. So what we're trying to do is remove and reduce that risk. And moreover, although we have the keys, the records of this ultimately manifest itself out on the public blockchain. So this is something new for everybody. There's a lot of explanation we go through. Certain players have been in the space a long time, and they have conviction about how safety and security and custody should be provisioned. So we're working with those, and there'll be more announcements coming about some of the partnerships we're forming in this regard as well.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing it. Talk to us about the contract size itself. Let's talk about Bitcoin.
Yep.
If I bought one Bitcoin in the futures, how much would physically be delivered to me?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've bought a full coin, that's what would be physically delivered to you.
So it's 1-to-1, right?
Yeah.
So I buy one Bitcoin, okay.
Yeah, but what we're looking at, so we're sounding out our contract specs with counterparts, but we're looking at more likely something like 1/10 of a Bitcoin, which I think is going to be a lot more accessible to folks.
Oh, okay.
But obviously, if you get into other things that have smaller notional values, currently, maybe 1/10 is too small. So we're circulating those contract specs to people that have expressed interest into trading on our market, and we'll be finalizing those and publishing those obviously well before we go live.
Yeah, so that was part of the reason why I asked why the importance of physically delivered if you're going to have your own spot, because why not just go to the spot?
Yeah, well, again, we can size that spot contract as well, too. So, in Bitcoin land, when you start getting off into smaller quantities, into the Satoshis and on forth, you can slice the prosciutto pretty thin if you want to. But we think the current contracts that are out there are kind of large for perhaps a retail trader or professional trader to get involved on an individual basis. So we're out there with a spec that we're circulating. As I said, we're targeting what looks like about 1/10 of a Bitcoin, and then sizing for the other ones appropriately as well too, and that would be reflected in spot as well as in futures.
So talk to me a little bit about the platform. So you're the data feed for the spot. You have the futures based off of that spot that are physically delivered. So does everyone have to use your platform, or are you going to allow other platforms to connect to your chains to trade both the spot and the futures? Yeah,
so we're operating the matching engine as the exchange, so that's where the bids and offers are all going to be posted and the markets will be made. We're operating the clearinghouse as well, and that's all integrated part of our package of what we're offering as an exchange and clearing operator. As far as getting trades in and out of the market, we just recently announced a partnership with CQG, who's been great to work with. We've already done quite a bit of work with them and hooking their platform into the market, pretty widely used. But likewise, we recognize people might have their own in-house systems or other platforms they want to work with. So we have a fixed specification so people can bring other utilities to bear and connect into the market if they choose.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, you're talking to a TT user here, so I'm hoping at some point that does happen. Tom, great stuff. I have some rapid fire questions if you're ready for those.
I'm ready. Let's go.
Speaking of TT, our rapid fire segment is sponsored by Trading Technologies. Access the global markets from virtually anywhere with TT. They are the world's fastest commercially available futures trading platform. And now you can trade cryptocurrency, spot, and derivative markets side by side. For more information, please visit tradingtechnologies.com. Tom, first question for you. Who has influenced your life the most and why?
Well, I think professional life influence, maybe how I'll answer that question. There was a gentleman early in my career. I'm a recovering CPA, and started off traveling heavily around the Midwest selling software for international tax companies. And there's a gentleman I worked for there named Paul Jones, who to this day I refer back to all his lessons about how to build relationships and how to sell, selling value, selling solutions, how to be a good listener. All those things Paul taught me at a young age in my professional career, and the simplest lessons are the best ones, right? That carry through to this day today, even as CEO of ErisX.
What was one of the hardest things for you to overcome in your financial markets career?
Well, I think I've ridden through a lot of changes, whether it was Reg NMS in the equities markets or MiFID over in Europe, and really the movement from manual processes to automated trading processes, I mean, even back in college, I used to write trading strategies on platforms for folks. And I think when you get into a large institutional broker-dealer where I've spent a chunk of my career, change is hard. And being the agent of change sometimes is both exciting, but it can also be pretty thankless. So I think going through some of these big market upheavals of going from manual to algorithmic, going from one regulatory construct to another, all these sort of big step changes have taken place in the last 20 years have been really challenging, but they've also gotten me where I'm at today, so I'm very happy to have had those experiences.
How has your trading process evolved over the years?
Well, yeah, I guess, thinking about what we just talked about, the biggest one had been the move to algorithmic trading, right? And I've been fortunate to be involved in that in both the futures context and equities context. I mean, it's hard actually to explain to new people that I used to bring on the desk at some of the firms I was at that had never traded the old way, to explain to them having to calculate things manually or create your own sort of analytic chart and then come up with your target price and manually work the order. It's just does not compute is the look that you get. So I still to this day think that is one of the starkest, biggest changes out there, and I've seen it. It happened in equities, and then we've obviously seen the rise of it in futures, and futures brokers are dedicated to nothing but algorithmic trading exists out there today. Then you see it move into basis and other things. So yeah, I think that trade automation still, it's easy to sort of just wipe that one away and say, and everyone knows that, but it's a pretty big change still, and still being consumed in some geographies and in some asset classes.
What is one attribute that you believe every trader should have?
Flexibility. I mean, you have to trade the market you have, not the market you want. So I think you really got to be flexible every day when you open up that pad and take a look at that screen and figure out what you got to do.
Yeah, you got to be yoga flexible.
Yeah, exactly.
Favorite book you've read lately?
Well, it's not a new book, but I finally got a chance to read it. It's A Short History of Nearly Everything by Bill Bryson. It's pretty fantastic. It goes through everything from how did Isaac Newton figure out the weight of the Earth to how do we know there's a volcano in Yellowstone, to a whole variety of just interesting science and historical things related to everything from evolution and science and physics. It's a bit of a long read, but Bill Bryson's a great author, a really, really fun one to go through.
What's your favorite movie about trading?
Well, I think I got to go Trading Places. It's kind of hard not to love that one for a whole variety of reasons. I'm sure you get that answer a lot, but that definitely probably ranks up there because it's entertaining as well as educational.
What's amazing to me is after all these years, no one has even come close to making a movie as good as that.
No, I mean, honestly, I'll even throw in movies like The Big Short, where my wife mandated that I could not talk during the entire movie just because, when you get to something so close to something yeah, I agree. I don't know why. Maybe it's the magic of the actors or the subject matter, but nothing's topped it yet.
No. What's the best piece of advice that you've received about trading?
The best piece of advice I've received about trading, well, I'll come back to my previous comment, right? You have to trade the market you have, not the market you want. And I think the best piece of advice, summarized on I've gotten is don't fall in love with your position. I mean, you may love it, but if the market doesn't, you might find yourself on the wrong side. So I think, don't fall in love with that position that you loved last week.
If you could go back in time and give the younger you a piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, this will probably elicit a laugh from people who know me, but I'd say younger me needs to talk less and listen more. Would be the best advice I could give younger Tom.
Last question for today, Tom. What's your favorite thing to do when you're not working?
When I'm not working, well, I'm a huge hockey fan and spend a lot of time with kids who play hockey. And, these sort of jobs demand a lot of your time. So a lot of my free time goes to family right now. I got young kids. But, yeah, I'd say that's probably where I spend the majority of my free time.
Tell me it's the Hawks at least.
It is. Even though I live in New York, having grown up here, I am Hawks first, Rangers second. Definitely the Hawks.
Awesome. Tom, where can people find you on Twitter, and give us a website to check out?
Sure. Website is ErisX.com, and then our Twitter handle is ErisX_digital.
Tom, thank you very much for coming on Futures Radio Show today.
All right. Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to Futures Radio Show. If you have any questions or comments for myself or my guests, please visit futuresradioshow.com and sign up to be a premium member for free. If you enjoyed the show, don't forget to leave us a review on iTunes.